Who's ready to win the day in sports? I know you are. Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com, Monday through Friday, noon to 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm Justin Fensterman, and let's break everything down from a fantasy sports perspective. What is going on, everybody? Happy afternoon to the East Coasters and good morning to everybody else. Get excited because the sleeveless jerseys are back here for your big-time Wednesday edition of Fantasy Sports Daily here on the Elite Plus Network, powered by FantasyGuru.com. Who am I besides the strongest man alive? Rah! My name is Justin Fensterman. You know me as Fensty. You can find me on X and also Instagram at Fensty Sports, FenSty Sports. I think you can spell that one. And also now in the DFS NBA Discord channel and the NBA betting Discord channel at FantasyGuru.com at Fensty, Fensty. I figured out how to shake the tail from the name. So with that right there, you want to hit me up talking all things betting and DFS with all of you. I'm the lead NBA analyst for FantasyGuru.com. I also do some football work and hanging out with all of the elite mafia here. Let's talk about what we got going on. We got a lot to talk about today. We've got Armando Marsal coming on to talk some FanDuel, to talk some DraftKings plays for tonight's slate. And tonight is going to feature a storm with choppy waters. It's like I've heard this before. I don't know if any of you have ever been to Antarctica before, but to get to Antarctica, you have to leave from, I think, Buenos Aires on a cruise. This is one way to get to Antarctica. Off of Buenos Aires in South America, you then take a cruise ship to Antarctica, and it's apparently the rockiest cruise you'll ever take, and you're bound to get some kind of motion sickness. You'll have to definitely stack up on some Dramamine or something like that to get through, because that is where, as those that don't know geography, here you go, a little lesson from the history teacher himself, Mr. Fensterman. It is where the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean crash into each other, they meet, and that causes a rocky boat ride just to get to Antarctica here. Why did I just say that? Well, I'll just say this here to get us back on track, because it's going to be a stormy night, a lot of big-time spreads that we're going to talk about. I'm going to go over some betting strategies too, and some of my favorite plays catching you up. Jayson, it's great to see you there in the chat. I'll take your chat questions as well. We do a lot of baseball on this show. Ray Flowers hosts Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, noon Eastern, free show for all here from all of us in the Elite Mafia at FantasyGuru.com. I handle Wednesdays here because Ray is actually hanging out with Jeff Mans every single Wednesday on Elite Sports, which you can tune in and catch Jeff Pappy Mans all week long, 3 p.m. Eastern on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. That's SiriusXM Channel 87. Before we get down to business here, let's talk about how you can be further part of the Elite Mafia here. Let's talk about the merch store that we have. It's really great. I've been donating the merch there for the last few weeks, but now back by popular demand, the sleeveless style indeed. You could thank Armando Marsal as to why your screens, whether it's your phones or your computers, laptops, why they're currently cracked or broken from seeing me. You can thank him for that when he joins me in just a little bit. When you go to this store, here's an example. This is an awesome shirt here, one of my favorites. I actually have 3 of the shirts here from FantasyGuru.com. This is one of them. You like hats? Boom, hats as well. Make sure you get yours to be further part of the Elite Mafia at FantasyGuru.com. There's the link to the store. You can find it on the site. Now, well, before you get the merch, you got to join the site here, and let's talk about how you do that, and that's the MVP plan. Because for me, what I do right now fits right into that MVP plan. Because when you get the MVP Pass plan, you get everything we have except for football and baseball. Those products are in a separate package. Everything else, though, everything. We've got golf riding right now. Tyler Rodriguez writing up all those bets and DFS plays for you. I saw putting out some content on the site before. No rest for the winners here at FantasyGuru.com. Racing Whether it's horse racing with Slappy White or NASCAR with our guy, the Bosco, Rich Mileto, and Sean Angle, you get that as part of the deal. Hockey with Jorge Pucks. Here's the thing with hockey, and this is how it differs from basketball. Less variance when it comes to injuries in hockey. So our hockey guys have that content out for you morningside, so you have plenty of time to digest it. Jorge Pucks, Ryan Clifford, they do a great, great job. Nick Rodriguez as well for our hockey team. And then you have the basketball team. You've got me. You've got Armando Marsal, who's stopping by. Scott Bonder, Mike the Beard, Serge Singh, and Chris Rose, all of us ready to help you win when it comes to the NBA. But that is how you get involved with NBA, NHL, golf, horse racing, NASCAR, everything that we offer except for baseball and football you get with this package right here. I have to tell you about it because we do a lot when it comes to the basketball side of it. And here's something else that you can take a look at here. I haven't put this one up in a while. We actually have our own tools at fantasyguru.com. And no, we're not talking about the writers here, you wise guys out there. No, we're not tools. Well, maybe I am, but the rest of us aren't at fantasyguru.com. But we've got the tools that are going to help you win here. And these tools are for both DFS and wagering. You see them all listed here. The Delta Force tool essentially tells you, and by the way, you can find these tools by going to the data section of fantasyguru.com. You go to data, you go to basketball, you'll see all of these tools pop up. And the Delta Force tool, just to reintroduce you to that, it lets you know a potential ceiling for a player with maybe some of his other teammates that are questionable or are listed as out for the evening. You'll be able to figure out from the Delta side of the tool, when you click that, you'll see the analytic right there, which players are in for maybe a bonus, a bigger performance than they otherwise would average because maybe they're getting more playing time. Maybe they're getting against an opponent that really suck against their position, or they suck against forwards. They allow a lot of rebounding. We're going to talk about that. That's where the Delta Force tool comes in. Totals projections as well. You're looking for a variance of 3% when wagering. You can go and you can bet if you see a 2% difference between the total and our expected total of the game, but you're really looking for that 3 to 4% window. That's very telling right there for you to place that bet. Oftentimes more unders than overs. Then we have our DFS and props projections as well, which are regularly updated. And you guys have also, by the way, because we're not perfect, you've done a great job of letting us know when, let's say, there's an issue. Hey, this player is projected for 65 minutes, or rather, this player is projected for 15 minutes. He's not restricted. Boom, we get that fixed for you right there. We all help each other out. None of this runs perfectly. If you look below the dotted line, this is the one area of the data section where we have to update, which doesn't update automatically. And that's our projections and ownership, which we know you guys like a lot. But here's the other thing with that. You can also talk about it with us in the Discord. We hang there a lot. And that's why I got to tell you about, as I'm leaving our tools here, we're going to talk about what's going on for the rest of the show. If you look all the way at the bottom, boom, watch along Wednesday. Every single Wednesday. And I almost feel like it's a steal of an opportunity, because how many analysts out there, and I'm not the only one, I'm not trying to make like I'm special, but if you think about the many analysts out there, how many of them are willing to put multiple hours aside just to sit in a Discord room, literally sitting there ready to answer your questions? It's one thing putting out the content. It's another just answering your questions quickly, but there aren't many. But at fantasyguru.com and part of the Elite Mafia, that is where those analysts live, some of them. There are others out there too. I'm not going to disrespect anyone in our great industry, but I'll tell you this right now, because a lot of people are like, well, why Fantasy Guru? Why sign up for Fantasy Guru? Why get this MVP plan? Why pay? Ooh, that's a great question, because it's not only that you're paying for plays, for picks, but you're paying for access to our analysts as well. And our analysts, and we have such a the largest active Discord community that we have at fantasyguru.com. We're here to help you. We have our analysts in Discord. Discord at this point, not only in our site, but in our entire industry, is half the battle, because so much changes that us putting out an article, it's not enough. I just mentioned the hockey guys. They put out an article, but That doesn't mean they're done for the day. See you guys later. No, they're watching to see what happens if another player is ruled out, how that's going to impact the lines in Discord. I'm watching their Discord while I'm answering our questions too. And an hour before the game starts, you've got multiple analysts most days, only one on the weekend for the basketball side, multiple analysts ready to help you. We offer cheat sheets. We offer write-ups. You put those together, and you're able to create a lineup plus access to us where we can check your lineup. But then watch along Wednesday. A few of you have attended. And by the way, it's not supposed to be for those that do attend because I can't tell who's physically in the Discord room. I could probably figure out a way, but I haven't gotten to that yet. I'm not the most technologically advanced person. But I'll say this. I know how to get into that Discord room, and I'm sitting there for 2.5 hours just wanting to talk ball with everybody. You're watching the games. Let's sweat it out together. Do I sit? Some of you have asked me this. Do I sit in the betting Discord room? And the answer to that is no for the most part. And the reason for that is because when live bets are being put out there in the betting Discord room, I don't want my reactions to completely take away from the live betting aspect. So a lot of my live reactions, I'll hang out a little bit in the betting Discord room. Jeff Mans is certainly in there every single Wednesday. But mainly I hang in the DFS Discord room, and I'm writing reactions to what I'm seeing in these games. I'm fielding your questions, also thinking about podcast topics because I put out a basketball podcast once a week, Fensty's Basketball Diaries, right here on the Elite Plus Network. Just like you get Armando Marsal's Mind of Marsal podcast. Just like you are watching right now, Fantasy Sports Daily, you get Jeff Mans' One Man's Opinion weekly podcast right there as well. When you go to fantasyguru.com and click the Elite Plus section, it brings you right there to everything. But that's part of it because I want to figure out what you want to hear about. What jersey am I wearing? For those that ask me to start wearing jerseys, I've got a very extensive jersey collection. I love them very much. I'm an immature kid. I don't care. I deal with it. I have the hairline of an 85-year-old, though. The old school Seattle Supersonics, Gary Payton. It's not the old school 90s jerseys, but these were like the early 2000s jerseys of Gary Payton right before he was traded. Remember that. I was actually in Disney World. I got sick at Disney World. Don't ever, and make sure if you bring kids to Disney World, don't ever overeat at Disney World. In the hot sun, I know that there's a lot of temptations and the foods, but don't overeat and don't eat too much junk food when you have the hot sun crushing you the entire day. It ruined half a Disney World trip for me in 2003. But I remember sitting there in that hotel room and seeing Gary Payton traded to the Bucks for Ray Allen. I was kind of shocked on both sides. Gary Payton had been in the league a long time. Ray Allen just entering the prime of his career. Such a young guy. I believe, I'd have to think about it, maybe just entering his late 20s by the time that trade was made. I mean, did it get Seattle really anywhere? Not really. But at the same time, Gary Payton ended up becoming a member of the Milwaukee Bucks, later the Lakers. Did not win a title there. Went to Miami after that. So let's talk about a little bit of betting first, because then we're going to be spending a lot of this talking about DFS for tonight's slate. And that is, today I'm going to be focusing on rebounding, because I'm finding for myself, when you look, and I put out probably, and I'd have to do the math, but I want to say in the neighborhood of 350 bets this year. I try not to miss a day. I've only missed a few. We'll likely miss a few more before the end of the season, maybe one or two, but definitely not during the week. And that's part of it too. We don't break on the weekends. You see me putting in betting content during the weekend for NBA. You see Jeff Mans as well. I'm more of a single bettor. I'll do the alt line parlays every so often, but when I'm feeling like I'm in a rhythm with the single betting, that's where I come in. And I get it. A lot of you don't like, for instance, you don't like minus 128. And I don't understand that. I don't get that. I get that everybody wants to hit the plus 130 and plus 150. And yes, when you're doing a parlay, there's no point, because it's so hard to hit a parlay. There's no point in doing and crushing yourself trying to find a 4-leg parlay for minus 125. I get that. I understand that. All it takes is for one thing to go wrong, one player to not play that kind of time, and before you know it, you're kind of screwed there. But for single bets, stop just focusing on the plus money. Stop it, please, because sometimes we're going to drink the juice, and I'm going to write that. When I see something that's minus 128, minus 130, I will say I'm drinking the juice. Last night, for instance, Dyson Daniels, it was a perfect spot for him. Rebounds and assists, they were at 9.5. He didn't go over. He hasn't been really going over 10 that much. This matchup, in so many ways against the Bucks, was perfect for him, and we saw him go over it multiple times. And yeah, the 9.5 was actually when I put it out there at like minus 130. Immediately, people see that and they think, I got to parlay it with something else. Or immediately, people see that and they go, ugh, minus 130. Here's what you do. You up your investment. I'm not going to tell you how many units to bet. I don't know what everybody's unit weights are. Everybody has a difference of what exactly a unit is. For me, you might think I'm some big-time wagerer, like I'm Jimmy the Greek Snyder. No, I'm not Jimmy the Greek Snyder. I'm Justin Fensterman, just like you, betting $5 and $10 on these bets. Some of you bet $100 on these bets. I'm not telling you to do that. That's on you. But just up the investment in the bet if you're that concerned about the odds. It's one thing if something's minus 150, even minus 145. I've put out a couple, maybe 2 or 3 of the entire year, minus 140s bets. Because at the end of the day, I know we want a strong ROI, but I want to hit bets. I do. And that's what it comes down to. And I'm not spending the entire day looking for plus money. But I wrote that, look, Dyson Daniels, if there's a matchup, he could go over 10.5 RAs, rebounds plus assists. Then you look at it. Here's how I look at rebounds. I'll do assists next week. How I look for rebounding props, because you see me, I do a lot of point props, and I do a lot of rebounding props, assist props, and rebounds plus assists. That's generally where I stand with the occasional 3-point prop. But when it comes to rebounding, what I'm looking for is I'm looking for a few things. The pace. Those slower moving teams against the fastest moving offenses in the league, they're going to be used to more possessions. Good rebounders' ceilings go up because of that. Next, injuries to see who's out, for instance. Like we're going to talk about the Jazz. The Jazz every single night have half the team out at this point. Somebody's got to rebound. Maybe that's a direction to look. That's just an example right there. But besides looking at the defense versus position, where I've talked about I'm not fully leaning on, but I am still using it as a factor. Last year, I used it as a crutch, but as we're seeing, the NBA is becoming a little bit more positionless. So you have to be careful with that. Like if I see a team giving up a lot of boards to both forward positions and centers, okay, we have a correlation there. We can look at that. Next, what I look is I go on, let's say, your favorite website besides fantasyguru.com, ESPN, NBA, and I'll check to see what teams surrender the most rebounds to opponents. The Knicks are number 1. This is where you have to be careful. They've been surrendering more production over the last month and a half. So it's taking in all the season. I can't increment that. I can find ways to do so, but I look for it generally because, again, at this point, a lot of the season's gone on. Things have changed. Teams have changed. But if I see a team, a noticeable team, for instance, I'm looking at the list right now, who averaged the most rebounds to opponents, the Washington Wizards. They're on tonight, and they're facing the Utah Jazz, who are missing virtually all of their starters. The Bulls, we've attacked the Bulls a bunch. The Spurs, we've attacked the Spurs. The Bucks last night, the Bucks are one of the weakest rebounding teams out there, and they surrender a hell of a lot of them to opponents. Boom, that's part of the motivation for the Dyson Daniels bet that I put out last night. So when it comes to rebounds, I look at a few things. I do look at the DVP. I look to see how the player's been rebounding as of late. If I'm seeing him go way over the number and they're due and they're against a tougher team, sometimes I'll tempt fate, sometimes I won't. But then on NBA.com, you can look up advanced stats and look up rebounding chances. And this is huge. This last year became a game changer for me. Rebounding chances, if the player's in the vicinity, has a shot at grabbing the rebound, this stat accounts for it. Again, you can't use it as a full crutch, but it's a great factor to use because it's showing that maybe the player is not grabbing rebounds, but they're in the vicinity. And when other bigger players are out, for instance, someone's going to have to pick up the slack on rebounding and their ceilings are going up. It's showing me those ceilings, and that's where I can learn to trust players for rebounding. So again, quick recap. Defense versus position, a factor. how many rebounds the team's been giving up lately and for the entire season to opponents. Add on to that. Also look to see if the team is a good rebounding team in general. Sometimes it doesn't correlate. Often it does, but it's not always. And then looking up potential rebounds, organize it, not by the full season. Go by the last 10 games, then go by the last 5 games, then go by the last 3 games. Unless there has been a change in roster, that is what I do to help me find rebounding props. You need any more help? At Fensty Sports, right there. You know that your boys, and we're going to talk some injuries with Armando Marsal joining me as he does every single week to talk some hoops here. You can find him at Armando_Marsal on X. Armando, what's going on, man? Welcome back.
How's it going, Fensty?
It's going well, dude. It's going well. It's a wild Wednesday, man. You and I are on the coverage for tonight at fantasyguru.com. I'm on the write-up. You're on the cheat sheet. We're going to be getting together in Discord a little bit later on. And I got to tell you, man, there are a lot of double-digit spreads that we're faced with tonight, man. And this is a good place to start because we got to go after some of these games. There's going to be at least one, maybe 2 of these games that are 9 points or more for a spread that are actually going to be close. We've experienced that before. But if there's any game that you can pinpoint that you're pretty much staying away from at this point, what game would that be on this 7-game DraftKings slate, 8-game FanDuel game slate?
It's probably going to be that Cleveland-Miami game. I'm just not overly excited about that game. I don't like the pace. I look at this game and it's not all that appealing to me. There is one, like if Hero misses, like if he doesn't play there, Davion Mitchell is someone I could, get on board with at cheap price. He's been returning value, but outside of him, I'm just not overly excited about this game.
What about Bam? Because there's no Killel Ware. And I mean, Hero at this point, it's not a lock that he's not playing. He's sick and he missed shoot around. Normally that's not a good combo, but we've seen players still give it a go anyway. But does it make you worry too much that Cleveland is just going to blow the pants off of Miami and then Bam is only going to play, let's say, 28 minutes and not have that opportunity to hit his ceiling?
Yeah, that is a concern of mine. Obviously, you know that the usage and the opportunities are going to increase when Hero and Ware are off the court, but it's just not a matchup. It's not a game. I look at it, I just don't know if Miami can keep it close here. Yeah, I'm just not as excited for this game, man. That's I know there's going to be opportunities. I do have Mitchell as a cash and GPP option tonight at his price tag. He's been returning value, like even with Hero playing. So I think that he's cheap enough, in my opinion, where you can take that kind of chance. And even in the blowout, I don't see him as one of the first ones to come off the court. I think Adebayo would be one of the first ones to come off the court in that instance.
He said, Mitchell, that he's playing tonight, but that's him saying that. So we haven't gotten the coach's confirmation. We've been screwed by that before, players say. So I'm just making sure we know, for those that are watching it a little bit later on, according to him, he should play tonight, but we will have to wait and see. I'm kind of with you there because they even let Evan Mobley rest last night. And now because of that, with him being back, it kind of waters down a lot of those Cleveland options, at least to me. I tried last night, me and Serge were trying to figure out which Cleveland, Serge Singh, by the way, part of our NBA team at Fantasy Guru. We're trying to figure out which Cavs to go with. Bro, I went with freaking DeAndre Hunter. I'm like, oh, it's going to be great, walking into shots. And he didn't shoot jack squat, man. Ended up cashing our rebound prop barely, but the guy was barely involved in the offense. I didn't like how they utilized him. Now you put Mobley back into this mix with Miami missing some of their key pieces, bro. I'm kind of with you here, man. This might be a game where even if I write up some plays, which I do currently on my big board, you've seen it. I've got Mitchell that I'm writing up because he's done well in this matchup before. But, dude, very scary waters tonight for this game. You're right.
Yeah, it is. And I was talking about Davion Mitchell from Miami, not yeah.
No, I knew that Davion Mitchell was saying that he's going to play.
Yeah,
we have not gotten the confirmation that he's playing yet.
I know. The good thing is it's 7 p.m. game, right? So we should have that information before 7 p.m.
Right.
Again,
dude,
you never know.
Rozier, like people were asking me about Rozier the other night, and I couldn't get behind him because they were playing him 10 minutes a game. Let's face it, he's got that looming scandal over him. We've read the reports that Heat regretted trading him, but they were forced to play him, and he actually played meaningful minutes. And that is another fly in the ointment right there, because it just makes this team from a value standpoint confusing as well.
Yeah, it does. And then you also have Duncan Robinson's cheap. Like, there are options. Don't get me wrong. It's just, do I want to be invested in these options, overly invested? And I just don't feel great about it. I do think there's going to be opportunities, especially of hero sits and whatnot, but I'm going to keep a close eye on news. Right now, in my cheat sheet, I've been working on it this morning. It's not live yet, but Mitchell's on there. Robinson is GPP flyer, but no one grades out as a must play or anything like that. Mitchell is the closest thing that there is to it for me, given his price and what he's, I think you're going to pretty much walk into 5X tonight.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm with you there. By the way, it's your fault. I blamed you for this before. It's your fault why computer screens and phone screens everywhere have broken suddenly, because you're not in your attire there, Armando Marsal. But right here, dues unpaid. I'm in my sleeveless jersey this week, my friend.
Listen, it looks like your dues are being paid over there, Fensty. I mean, look at that. Look at those arms, bro.
It's a flat bay over here, except for this little cut that I've always had naturally in my bicep, bro. I'm not like, I don't have skate park arms like you have.
I don't have those yet. Not yet. Almost there. I'm getting there. I'm trying to get there. So I'm day 16, I think, or 17 of 75 hard. So we're getting there.
You're back on it again? You're back doing the 75?
Yeah, I'm doing it now. I'm in the process of it right now. Yeah, I try to do it once a year, to be honest with you. I feel like it's a good, I guess, mental cleanser. Like, it's just, kind of a therapy type thing. So, yeah, I try to do it every year right after football season ends.
Yeah, one of the most dedicated gym people I've seen. There's Bob Harris, and then there's this guy, Armando Marsal.
By the way, since you mentioned that, I don't know if he's watching. I hope he is, Bob. I hope you're watching. He actually got me on the fitness thing many years ago. Like, he and I had a long conversation, and he told me everything that he went through and everything that he did. So big shout out to Bob. He kind of got me on the fitness game many years ago, and kind of pulled to what I'm doing now. So
he did for me too, actually, because in 2019 I started working from home. I mean, a lot of people know this by now, maybe some don't, that I went from being a radio producer to kind of transitioning to being a radio host. And because of that, I didn't have to go produce shows at the studio anymore. So I started working from home. And one of the first things Bob Harris from Football Guys, by the way, long time. I mean, Jeff Mann's his co-host on the SiriusXM pregame show during football seasons on Sunday. They do a great job. Long time legendary Hall of Famer. He told me, you got to get in some kind of routine. You can't just melt into your chair. It'll hurt your back. It'll hurt your ass. And you'll get lazy very quickly. So you got to do something. You got to make sure you stay physical when you're working from home. Thank goodness, man, that he told me that. I wish some of these NBA players can figure out how to stay in shape like a Luka Doncic, the Bob Harris way. Then they wouldn't be traded to the Lakers. Dude, can you believe what's gone on with Dallas? It's a freaking joke, man. And to bring it back, because they're on the slate, they trade Luka Doncic. They not only trade Luka Doncic, but they also trade Quentin Grimes, who Quentin Grimes on Philly has been just exploding with production, especially on the scoring front. We knew the defense was there. With all their injuries, they've been starting him. And Dallas just lost Kyrie Irving for probably, if I had to guess, Armando, at least until next January. I mean, he did this in like early March. He's going to be out until probably right when the year becomes 2026. So Dallas trades for Anthony Davis. First game, he gets hurt. We now might not see him for the rest of the season. Daniel Gafford injures his knee. Derek Lively is out. And bro, they're so screwed. They've got no one at this point. And now for tonight's game to kind of bring us back when we're looking to see who we're going to look at, because again, another double-digit spread, but it's a good game environment against Milwaukee. I mean, who are we looking at now? Are we looking at Dinwiddie? Are we closing our eyes and trying to trust Max Christie, Najee Marshall? Where are you going with Dallas?
I think Dinwiddie is the one I'm going to be most aggressive with. I think he's going to get a lot more opportunities. I expect him to play upwards of 30 minutes here. His point per minute hasn't been great over the last month, but someone that produces decent numbers on a point per minute basis. You mentioned it. I think it's a good game environment for them. I expect to blow out, but they're so shorthanded that what are they going to do?
Right.
Right? Like what are they going to do? So even in a blowout, I'm expecting guys like Dinwiddie to play upwards of 30 minutes. I'm expecting, Marsal to play upwards of 30 minutes. I'm expecting Christie to play upwards of 30 minutes. And all of them are very affordable tonight. I probably will sprinkle in one or two of them in my lineup this evening. Dinwiddie is grading out phenomenal for me. I don't want to say he's going to be a core play for me, but he's going to be a borderline core play for me tonight. I just think that when you look at the price, you look at the game environment, you look at the expected minutes, you look at what, his production on a per minute basis, he checks off most of those boxes for me. So I do like him here quite a bit. He's the one that really stands out to me out of the bunch. But again, you can even make a case for Klay Thompson. You can make a case for all of these guys given their price tags. No one's overly expensive, and the minutes are going to be there. So I think you could definitely make a strong case for a lot of these guys in Dallas.
And I just want to point this out too, Armando. So Najee Marshall has actually posted 6 assists in 2 of his last 3 games, 4+ in his last 3. We've seen Najee Marshall in situations when Luka and Kyrie were out start at point guard. So I just want to say that it Spencer Dinwiddie, a lot of people are going to be on him. I'm almost hoping that Najee Marshall isn't starting at point, because if he's not, if you've got both of them in the lineup, ownership will be down on Najee Marshall as the more expensive player. And I don't know yet, Armando, if I'm putting him in my core or not, but something that you pointed out that I want to bring up again, Dallas is just so shorthanded that, and by the way, the pace favoring them in this matchup tonight. So they're getting the pace bump. They're shorthanded. They lost by 24 points against the Kings the other night. Marshall hit 30 minutes. They lost by 15 points against Milwaukee in the same matchup. Marshall still played 30 minutes. Now, he didn't do a lot on the scoring front, but I think it's changed now. I think he'll get more shot opportunities. So even though he's around 6K on DK, I'm really going to be eyeing Najee Marshall from the mid-tier.
Yeah, I think he's very interesting to me. He's averaging 0.95 fantasy points per minute over the last month. So if you're expecting, 30, 32 minutes, I think you're going to get there with him at sub 6K. So I think he's firmly in play. The question is, I guess this is what we have to ask ourselves. If you plan on fading, then you definitely want to have Marshall or Christie in your lineup. I think that would be the way to go. But if you play Dinwiddie, do you play 2 of these guys? I think you can, right? I think you can play Marshall and Dinwiddie in the same lineup. I don't have any issues with that, because I do think they're both going to play upwards of 30 minutes. And at their price tag, given the game environment here, it's appealing, and given their production per minute. So I don't know if I'm with you. I don't know if we're going to make Marshall a core play tonight. But I do think he's a piece of a value piece that I'm going to be looking at, because I do consider him somewhat value here at sub 6K.
Another player I want to ask you about, Armando. I know I'm going all over the place here, but we know at least, and let me just go over some injuries very quickly, because I'm going to ask you about Jonas Valanciunas. Not playing tonight. Anthony Davis isn't playing tonight, obviously. Sabonis is out. Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to be out tonight. Kawhi Leonard and Norman Powell will be out for those playing on FanDuel. That is where the Clippers game applies on DraftKings. You just have all the games except for that Clippers game, the Clippers-Pistons game, which I would have loved because of all the guys out in that game. So for those playing on FanDuel, you can sink your teeth into some value on DraftKings main slate, which is where both Armando and I mainly play on DraftKings. No Detroit Clippers for the main slate tonight. But some of the other injuries, Andrew Wiggins will be out. DeAndre Ayton still out. We talked about Ware being out for Miami. And then you also have Derek Lively still out. And then half the Jazz are out, including Collins, Markkanen. I don't know how they're not getting fined or penalized for this. This is every freaking night now, Armando, that it's injury management. At least try to fake an injury. Collins, Markkanen, Kessler, Jordan Clarkson's out, Colin Sexton's out. I thought that we were going to be able to get a little cute with Collier and Keontae George, but Keontae George is now sick and he's questionable. That coming out just a little bit ago. So yeah, man, that's kind of what we're looking at there when it comes to some of the players out, and then some of the questionables: Jokic, Tatum, Jaylen Brown. Ja Morant went through shoot around, but he's questionable. Same with Santi Aldama, who's been returning value, but starting to get priced up. Hero is now questionable. Malik Monk, Rudy Gobert, Jeremy Grant, Aaron Gordon, Keyshawn George. Scottie Pippen Jr., Rashawn Holmes. Davion Mitchell says he's going to play, still listed as questionable. So let's talk a little bit about Valanciunas, because tonight, when it comes to that Sacramento game, I mean, he's in a very, very good spot against Denver. Denver's defense is nothing to write home about. Low spread, pace favoring the Kings. Has the price point become too high for Jonas Valanciunas, or are you willing to go back in with him now priced above $6K?
I am fine with going right back to Valanciunas here. I know his price is getting up there, and the minutes are a concern, right? Because I'm projecting 28 to 30 minutes, tops 30 minutes. I don't know if he exceeds 30 minutes. The good thing about him, he's averaging 1.3 fantasy points per minute. We've always known that on a per minute basis, he's producing at a high level. He had a monster game against Denver last time. He faced them 20 points, 12 boards. He did have 5 blocks in that game. I don't expect 5 blocks every game, but he still stuffed the stat sheet. He also had 5 assists. So someone that is going to produce in this matchup, you mentioned it, it should be a very good game environment, a competitive game. I think, just a good matchup for him. We've talked about this, I think, multiple times on the show, where Denver's not that defense that they once were. They're not playing at that level that they once were in years past. So this is a favorable matchup for him. I don't mind it. Probably not in cash, more of a GPP play for me than a cash game play. But I definitely think he's firmly in play. And when you look at his ceiling compared to his salary, that's why I like him in GPP. That's why he's so appealing, because he could give you a 40 plus, 50 plus, which you're talking now about 6, 7, 8, 9x in some instances. So if you can get that kind of production from a player in a tournament, I think he has game-winning upside. So yeah, I definitely think that if you're looking at tournaments, if you're trying to get a little bit different, because I don't expect him to be all that popular. I don't know where you have him as far as projections, ownership projections, but I don't think he's going to be popular. So yeah, count me in for Valanciunas tonight. He's definitely going to make the cheat sheet, and someone that grades out really well, in my opinion.
Let's just lift the curtain here, because I could talk to you right now about my article that I have here, and you have my big board in front of you. I'm having a very tough time narrowing down centers, mainly because I'm having a tough time figuring out how much these guys are going to play. Jokic, if he's going to play. Bam, how much is he going to play tonight? Can we trust Gobert? Is he going to play? That's going to impact Naz Reid, especially Julius Randle's out, getting kind of crowded in the Minnesota front court once again. Mark Williams, is he going to be able to play enough and get enough shot opportunities? There's just so many questions here. And unfortunately, for the DraftKings players, Zubac and Duren, who have been reliable, especially Zubac tonight with most of the team out, we don't have him on DraftKings. So to answer your question, I think Valanciunas is not going to be owned as much, because the price point, $6,900 on FanDuel, $6,400 on DraftKings. But I don't think that people think of him as someone that has that flash. But the game environment, past performance against Jokic, who is clearly might not be 100% going into this game, I might still core. There's a chance. I'm saying there's a chance that I might core Jonas Valanciunas. The only reason why I'm not fully in that, a few value centers, and you can let me know what you think. Guys like Kyle Filipowski and Kai Jones. I mean, can I core a $6,400 Jonas Valanciunas, expecting him to get volume, which I do, when I've got Kai Jones in a bare-bone front court in Dallas going tonight? Very hard to do.
It is very hard, and that's why I'm not going to. I'm probably not going to make any center a core play tonight, because I am looking at right now roster construction. I'm likely going to end up with 2 centers in my lineup. You mentioned 2 that I love tonight. Filipowski, I mean, I consider making him a core. If we're being honest, right? I think he's strong enough of a play to make a core. I think Jones is strong enough of a play to make a core. But the problem is, it's an abundance of centers tonight. And it's just really how your roster construction, let it lead you how you end up with your lineup. Let roster construction lead to your center. That's what I'm doing tonight. And that's the way I'm viewing it. But I think they're all strong plays. I mean, how do you feel about Alex Sarr? I think he's another one that's interested in tournaments, like not GPP, but tournaments.
Right.
Or not cash, but tournaments. Like, how do you feel about him tonight?
I'll say this. I like him better. I mean, I feel like they're watching his minutes, Washington. They're at least playing their guys. If George and Holmes sit, let's just say they both sit, I'm adding him to the freaking article. He's not there. He's kind of a periphery guy for the article right now. I was thinking about him. As I'm checking down the names and looking up things as I do, I stopped and I'm like, could this be a good SAR night tonight? Because it's a great game environment. The Jazz don't have a front court. I think in GPPs and even those bigger tournaments, I think that you could go with SAR. Smaller tournaments, you're talking your tournament with 300 people in it, I'm not going Alex SAR.
Yeah, in a single entry tournament, small field, like that kind of the stuff I play, I probably won't be on him.
Right.
If you're playing, let's say the one that's 100K, I don't even know what that tournament is, but 100K for first when you're playing $15, sure. Like in one of those tournaments where you're playing thousands of people, that's especially if you're stacking that game. And we can't talk about that, but I think that's my favorite game to stack. I don't think that's going to be surprising to anyone. I'm going to stack that game. That's kind of my plan tonight, and then go different in other directions.
The Wizards Jazz game you're referring
to. Yeah. I think you can easily play 5 total players or even 6 total players.
You don't have to pay for anyone on Utah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And then you could pay up. For, I mean, I don't know who your top pay up option is. I'm kind of torn between 2 guys, and we could talk about those guys soon. But for me, I mean, I love that game. I'm going to find a way, and I think it's going to be chalky, but there's other ways to get creative and unique, right? And I don't think that you need to fade. You're talking about 2 teams that play top 10 pace, and both of them are the 2 bottom defense efficiency teams, Utah, Washington. That's it. Those are the 2 bottom defense efficiency teams. So they don't play defense, and they play up in pace. There's going to be an abundance of opportunities here, and no one is priced up. No one. So I definitely think this is a game you want to be invested in tonight, and find a way to get unique and creative elsewhere.
2 players I like from Washington tonight, especially if George sits. If George plays, I like George a lot. They're keeping him priced low. He rebounds. He hustles. I know you could say, oh, everyone hustles. No, not everybody hustles in the NBA. Some of these mid guys, you could tell who's really putting their bodies on the line when especially there's a break. Who's running after the break while everybody else is just being like, okay, it's 2 points. We'll just stand on the side, wait for the pass. George is one of those guys that will hustle. If he sits, especially, Chris Middleton is someone, even if he plays, Chris Middleton is someone in a lower spread that I'm kind of into. What do you think of Bub Carrington? I'm very intrigued by him tonight.
I love Carrington tonight. I love this spot for him. I love this game environment. I like the price. Like I really like the price here. He's just, look, if you're looking at the numbers here, he's producing 0.8 fantasy points per minute over the last month, it's 0.1 more than he does. It seems very little, but that's a lot. That is a lot here. He comes in at 5,300. I'm expecting 32, 34 minutes, a floor of that. I think that's a floor. I like him, man. I really do like him. 5,300. I think that's too cheap, especially with the game environment, the matchup, the pace, all of that stuff. You take everything into consideration here, and he's one of those players that's probably going to be in my lineup. I'm strongly considering him making a core play tonight. That's kind of where I'm at. Like, for me, it's just determining who's going to be the core play from either side. Like, right? Like, I think if George plays, I agree with you 100%. 5K for George. That's tough to pass on. He might be a core play for me if he's active. Like, it's just, for me, a matter of who plays, who does it for Washington. But there's a good chance I have 2 or 3 of these guys. And I love the Middleton call. I'm wondering, what do you think his ownership is going to be like? Because I'm looking right now, and it's looking like 15, 17%. I think that's very, which is very low.
Because he's had 2 high-scoring games. They're like, oh, it's the old Middleton. He's back. He's not back. He's going to come back for a few games, and then when we end up coring him, he's going to have 6 points on 3 shots with like 5 assists and 4 turnovers, because that's how it goes here. Yeah. I'll tell you this, though. When it comes to Washington tonight, Jordan Poole being out really attracts me to Washington. He's like an umbrella, like a Zach LaVine player, like an umbrella player.
Yeah.
Hampers down everybody else when he's out there. But when he's out, it's everybody sees the light of day, and the production ceilings go up with no Jordan Poole tonight. I'm liking a lot more of these Wizards options tonight. Marcus Smart does not scare me. I don't think he plays more than 20 minutes, and that's why I think Carrington is pretty safe tonight. And he's a guy that can also produce, even if it's up to a minor extent, he gives you multi-category production, and he doesn't need a lot of minutes to do it. So he's not the smoothest player offensively, but he rebounds, gets you a few assists with no Jordan Poole. So I'm liking that where we're going here. I mean, you were talking about who to pay up for tonight. And this is where I'm kind of getting stuck. I mean, with John Morant going through shoot around, does Shai Gilgeous-Alexander become I know it's kind of the default. I mean, or do you take the chance with a Giannis going up against Dallas, who doesn't have a front court? But hey, if the Mavs are up big, is it on the back of Giannis, or is it a combination of Giannis, Kuzma, and Lillard killing them, which would water down the ceilings for the other players on the team? I mean, do you like SGA as the main pay-up option tonight?
Yeah, it's I'm torn between those two, if we're being honest. Like those are the two I'm struggling with right now. I'm leaning towards SGA. You look at that total; it's so appealing. It should be a competitive game. Two really good teams there.
Yeah, except no Jackson, and the possibility of Morant still sitting keeps this spread at a 9-point spread. That's kind of what I'm seeing by the books.
I expect Morant to play. If he went through shoot around, I expect him to play. I'm anticipating
he can't miss this game.
No, I anticipate he plays. Personally, I do think he plays. You look at SGA, he's had one really good game against him. He scored over 60 DK points. He missed the other one, I think 49.5. So right there in that 50 range. It's going to be very close. It's really good. To me, it's going to come down. The good thing is, like, that Milwaukee game is at 8. So, like, maybe we'll have Morant news before then. Like, if Morant sits, I'm going to pivot to maybe like a Giannis here. But again, I look at it as very strong. Both of them are very strong options. I haven't really decided. I don't think I'm going to core any of them because I don't like to lock down the high price guys. I kind of like to give the plays I'm building around.
And then let everybody else choose which high-priced guys to go after.
Because, listen, you can make a very good case for either. I don't want to handcuff anyone to any of these guys. I think you can make a strong case for Giannis, or I think you can make a strong case for SGA. If you send me a lineup and one of them is on one lineup or the other, I'm going to probably say okay to both lineups because I don't have anything against either of the two. And like you mentioned, even in the blowout, like Giannis he could be the reason why they blow them out, right? Like he could be the reason why it's a blowout. He could just go bonkers. And at halftime, he has 45, 50 DK points. It's just like, all right, like if you did it roster him tonight, you're not winning.
Right. One of the things I've noticed too, because I've missed a couple of Lillard bets and I'm like, what the hell's going on? Why am I missing these in great spots? Giannis is running the point a little bit more, I'm noticing.
Yes.
You're seeing it. You don't always see it on the stat sheet, but in this case you're seeing a lot more 7+ assist games. And so with that, it's just showing that he's been running the point a little bit more, watering Lillard down. I see a lot of people post that Lillard's one of the hardest players to bet on. It wasn't always the case. It's become the case, though, this season, especially over the last few months. Let me try to sell you on a player for GPPs. If you want to pay up for a GPP, get ready for this wild nonsense I'm about to give you. Anthony Edwards. Let me explain. LaMelo Ball should play. Mark Williams should play. Yildiz Bridges. Charlotte still doesn't have the talent to match Minnesota. But Armando, for some reason, this Hornets team, when they're playing at home and they're double-digit dogs, they have a way of just hanging around. And that's good for us DFS players. That's good if they hang around and this game is within 20 by the time it hits the fourth quarter. Anthony Edwards is coming back in the game. And that just makes me think this guy's not going to have any ownership tonight. The recent stats and trends for him, not good. Not good. But tonight, and if Gobert plays, I'm still thinking he'll cash in on more assists. I know Minnesota's healthier now, but I think that with Charlotte's ability to be able to just hang in games, not necessarily win, but hang in, Edwards is still on my board tonight. Wasn't originally, but then I started looking some stuff up. I've noticed it before with Charlotte, especially with bets I'm playing. What do you think about Edwards specifically for GPPs?
Yep, I have him in the cheat sheet. He is someone I think is a good GPP play. Look, whenever he's on a slate, for the most part, I think he's appealing in GPPs, right? I almost never going to recommend him in cash, especially at his price tag right now. But like you said, like if this game stays remotely close, he has a potential ceiling game here, right? Like, and if he has a ceiling game, you're going to get him at, I'll tell you right now where I have him projection-wise ownership here. Give me a second so I can pull that up.
While you're bringing that up, by the way, I'm just going to say some of the other guys that I have, I'll just read off. That's the beauty of watching this stream. Just a couple of other guys. The rest you'll go to the site. Jaylen Williams, not always a safe floor for production. mean, he's in there tonight. We don't know if Jaylen Brown's going to play. And then the Sacramento situation, too. It becomes better if Malik Monk sits, but if he plays, we got to make the decision between DeRozan and Zach LaVine tonight with no Sabonis, more time with the ball to go around. So it's not exactly like there's a lock of a small forward that has any price consideration on this slate.
Correct. And I looked, so Edwards, you're looking at 11 to 13%. I think that might even be lower. I think he could come in at sub 10% tonight. Like, I would not be shocked at all if he comes in at sub 10%. Obviously, very news dependent. We're still waiting on a lot of things. You know, we got to figure out that Boston news, see who plays, who does it there. I think that's going to, you know, change things up a little bit from an ownership perspective. But again, like, if you're getting Edwards at what, 10 to 12% in a big tournament, you have a big edge, right? Like, there's a lot of leverage there if he goes off and he has a seeding game, because you're also getting him. He's what, 90, I think
96 and 93.
So 93 on DK, 96 on FanDuel. 93 on DK, you're talking about less, $1,000 less than SGA, and $1,700 less than Giannis. Like, and the seeding game from Edwards could be right there in that range with Giannis. So you're using that extra salary to maybe beef up somewhere else, and that's kind of where you get the leverage and the edge. So yeah, I love that call, Fensty. He's in my cheat sheet right now as a GPP play, and I don't have him in my lineup right now, but that doesn't mean I won't end up with him in my lineup. I'm waiting on you. It's too early to confirm your lineup. It's too early to do any of that, but someone that does have a lot of appeal tonight for me.
Armando, for those playing on FanDuel tonight, I do want to respect FanDuel. And by the way, just to let everybody know, when the slate is split like this, where it's not a uniform amount of games on both the sites, we always at fantasyguru.com, we don't try to take the easy way out. We write our write-ups, at least I do. We write our write-ups with the higher slate also included too. What I do is I put players in red in any notes that I have from the games that only apply to one of the sites in red. So you'll see a few players in red. That's what that notes, that they're only available on FanDuel's Bane slate, not DraftKings. But some of the guys there, Armando, because like I mentioned, the Clippers have a lot of guys out tonight. I mean, this is what makes center so hard, because both Duren, who, even though Zubac, I've noticed from looking at some of the numbers, he doesn't let up as much scoring, but Duren was able to grab like 19 rebounds last time against the Clippers, and Zubac just destroyed them. I think both centers are in play tonight, and with no Tobias Harris for Detroit sticking with the front court, I feel like Asar Thompson is also going to be a little bit more in the mix too.
Yeah, I agree. I think both centers are firmly in play. On FanDuel, I'm probably going to take the discount on Zubac, right? It's a slight discount. It's not much. But I also feel like his minutes are a little bit more secure, right? I think that you have a higher floor of minutes for Zubac. So if I'm choosing between the two, I'm probably going to go him, but I think both are firmly in play. I think this is a good spot for both. And Duren is producing at a pretty high clip, right? Like, he's producing really good numbers. And you mentioned the last time these two teams faced off. So yeah, and I agree with you on Thompson as well. I think Malik Beasley is another one that is very interesting. He's producing over a fantasy point per minute over the last month, playing secure minutes there. Very affordable still. So kind of like a sneaky way to get the late night hammer. I don't anticipate a ton of ownership for him. So I think a good value play when you look at, on FanDuel, you're looking at that you look at the total of that game, you're like, looking at the kind of game environment, So you have a late night hammer option, very cheap, very affordable, who's producing pretty good numbers if you don't want to go all the way up the center. But to kind of like talk about like what you mentioned before, like on DraftKings, the center position's kind of, but you can secure it right there with one of the either Duren or Zubac. Like you're securing, you're cementing it. I think both of them are in great spots tonight.
Yeah, I'm probably going to take one. Maybe I'll make center position a little bit heavier. I try to, when it's a below 10 game slate on either side, I try to stick with 5 players that I'm of my main guys, and then I write a few value plays in there. I try to really stick to that. But when it's split like this, I try to make it a little bit heavier so it gives all of you options. And we've mentioned, by the way, the core 4. And for those that maybe are just joining us, because we do have repeat players out there, I'm seeing it in Discord that are just starting out there. We try to come up. Jeff Mans does this for football. He's very famous of doing it. Coming up with 4 players to build around where we can leave you. And it's not always the same amount of money. I try to leave a target of, on DraftKings, $6,000 per player after the core 4 that you could spend on. But there's some nights where there's just so much value, like Armando, for instance. I was going in on all value last night, and I left an average of like 6,400 per player on DraftKings. But then there are going to be other nights where I leave maybe 5,600, 5,700 on average. It all balances it out, but that's why the core four exists right there. Sometimes even if we like a fifth, a core five as well. I mean, Armando, when you're making your core fours, like I said, I try to really stick to that $6,000 average, but I keep it loose too in case we have a lot of value and some great studs on the map too. How do you come up with your core four? What do you focus on?
Yeah, I try to, because I think anyone, right? Like, I think anyone could say, oh, these are the best players and they're all 9K. You can't build a lineup like that, right? So, like, I try to make it to where it's balanced. Like you, the minimum I try to leave is like 5,500 per player. Like, that's what I try to, like never go under that, because then it becomes a little bit more challenging for roster construction purposes, right? And I want to make sure that the subscribers, the readers, everyone who's participating in NBA DFS, I want to make sure that they're, that it's easier for them. It's not challenging for them to build a roster, construct a lineup, because I know how it is. You don't want to dig down and go for some of these value plays that are highly volatile. I want to avoid as much volatility for our subscribers as possible. So I try to go with a very balanced lineup, which is why some SGA is not going to, I like SGA, I like, Giannis, but this is why you barely ever see some of these players in my core. When you see them in my core, the rest of the guys are probably going to be like, sub 5,500, like the rest of the way. Like, that's kind of how I do it. But I'm with you, man. I generally go with a really balanced approach with most of my builds. I feel like that's, what works for me most nights. And I try to, create my core to that. And I try to never have that high price guy, the obvious guy, like when Jokic is the obvious play. I try not to have him as a core play. I write him up or I put him in the, the cheat sheet, but I try not to have him in the core and let the subscribers make that decision of who they want to pay up for. So I agree with you. That's kind of the way I do it. Most of the nights, it'll be 5,500 above. Sometimes, like you said, 6K, 6,200, 6,300. On a night like tonight, I'll probably be in that 6K, 6,500 range with my core, because I'm looking at, again, Washington, Utah, and then, another player or two in that price range, that 5-6K price range that stand out to me as core plays tonight.
Yes, more I think about it, I'm like, Najee Marshall, probably not a core play, but definitely on our list of players to focus on here. Armando Marsal does a lot of great work at fantasyguru.com in football and in basketball too. What do you have coming up on the site, Armando?
Yeah, so obviously the cheat sheet will be up later today. I'm going to post it, and then obviously it'll change as news comes in. But I like to give everyone like an early look at what we got going on, where we, where it is that we are at early in the day. And as the day goes by, any changes, I got that. I got the article coming out, Mind the Marsal podcast. And then, starting next week, believe it or not, we got free agency in the NFL. So I'll be dabbling in both NFL and NBA again, like I did, late in the NFL season there. So, yeah, we got a lot of stuff coming up on the site. So
is my guy Garrett Wilson going to stay with my pathetic Jets?
I think so, right? Okay. I hope so. Now that Aaron Rodgers is like, bye-bye. I think that was
Aaron Rodgers gone. Devontae Adams now a free agent. Alan Lazard, he's looking for a trade. Dude, get rid of that. Start over. Do the thing. My Jets have not made the playoffs.
Why are your Jets not signing Breece Hall? Like, why are they not extending Breece Hall?
Dude,
Ray and I talked about this yesterday.
I don't understand why. I mean, I'm still trying to figure out why Aaron Glenn is the coach. I'm still trying to figure that out. I mean, because the defensive-minded coaches have really worked out. Oh, he's a motivator. They were saying the same thing about Robert Saleh 3 years ago. The exact same thing about Robert Saleh. He's a motivator, and they ran him out of town. I didn't even want Robert Saleh fired when he got fired last year. That was a whole.
He wasn't doing it. I don't think he was doing a bad
No,
job.
because it's the LeBron effect, and I love LeBron James, but unfortunately, with the way sports is, where players now have more of the power than they used to when we were growing up. I mean, guys like LeBron James, I mean, they can have a lot of control of what the organization does. Aaron Rodgers, he clearly had that control, and it sucked that he didn't do anything for the team. And dude, it was just that was just a nightmare. It's been nothing but a nightmare. Now they're starting over. They'll probably screw up everything with Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. So at this point, dude, if they could somehow get Justin Fields, that's really on my Jets QB target list right now. What do you think of that?
That would be great. I love Justin Fields, man. I think he's a very good quarterback.
Let's
Obviously,
not go crazy. You love Justin Fields.
no, I do. No, but I do. I think he's undervalued. Like, I really do think he's undervalued. Yes, does he have his deficiencies? Of course, but I think he brings a lot to the table. And in the right situation with the right coaching staff, with the right supporting cast, I think he could do a good job at the next level. He's shown glimpses of that. So I'm a big Justin Fields guy.
Wide receivers, man. So many good wideouts that are free agents. Bro.
Yeah.
So many.
It's gonna be a fun free agency, I think, and I think you're gonna see some unexpected trades as well, happen here. So I'm looking forward to it. Doesn't mean I'm not going to be doing NBA, guys. I'm still going to be here rocking NBA, but we got some NFL stuff coming as well, and then we also have March Madness coming up. A lot of good stuff starting out next week there. We got team previews. We're going to have brackets. A lot of stuff, a lot of plans. So if you haven't checked that out, make sure to get that March Madness package. It's going to have a lot of content there to cover for the March Madness, man.
Our guys, Teddy Ballgame, Ted Schuster, Scott Bonder as well, always helping out with the college, among others, part of the Elite Mafia at fantasyguru.com. He is Armando Marsal at Armando_Marsal on X. I'm Justin Fensterman at Fensty Sports. A little bit later on, I've got the write-up coming out at fantasyguru.com for tonight's NBA slate. And then 7:10 p.m. Eastern, because we're done building at 7 p.m. Eastern. We still help out after the slate technically locks. But still, I then take those 10 minutes, scarf down some dinner, and then I'm talking with all of you in the DFS NBA Discord chat from around 7:10 p.m. Eastern till around 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Watch along Wednesday. Hope to see you there. For Armando Marsal, I'm Justin Fensterman. Ray Flowers returns tomorrow, same time, noon Eastern, same place, right here on the Elite Plus Network for the great Fantasy Sports Daily Show, all part of the greatest fantasy sports site in existence of fantasy sports sites, fantasyguru.com.